Hello chess friends and welcome to the Art of Chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Declined series. So in this series we're following this very nice opening from White's and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing with our Queen's Gambit Declined series and the so-called Vienna Variation. The Vienna Variation we have explained so far with very important guidelines, with very important tactical ideas. So if you want to also know what's going on now in this video, please check out our series from the beginning, part 1, part 2, part 3 and so on, because maybe in this video we'll not cover some very important questions of the opening that we have covered maybe in our previous analysis. So as I said, it's very important to watch all of these videos combined to get a better understanding what's going on now in this very sharp opening. So today we're starting our analysis with a very popular move by White, and it's the move Queen to A4. You meet this motif many times. The idea is clear because many times in the Ragos in defense or the 3 knights variation of the Queen's Gambit Declined, the Vienna Variation, when we play the move Bishop to B4, this move can be met with a very aggressive Queen to A4, which creates a check, creates also double attack against the bishop on B4. Then you have to cover yourself with the move Knight to C6, and sometimes these ideas are not working for Black because this move Knight to C6 is a little bit too passive. So we're analyzing now this Queen to A4 ideas, and you can ask yourself the question, maybe why are we showing just one move by White? Why is it so important to know this line? Believe me or not, this method you face many times, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could get smashed very easily. So that's why we're analyzing now this move. When is it possible to play the move Queen to A4, or maybe when it's not good to play the move Queen to A4. So here our first move is of course the move D5, D4, D5, C4, E6. We have now the Queen's Gambit Declined. Knight to C3, Knight to F6, Knight to F3. We would reach of course the 3 knights variation. Now comes our actual Vienna Variation move, D takes C4. So this was our analysis so far in the series. So after move D takes C4, White can go easily into the game with the move E3 or with the move E4. In my opinion, E4 is much better, and we have started now recently to analyze this very aggressive methods with the move Bishop to B4. Now what White could do, of course, in the continuation of the game is the move Queen to A4, and that's now our analysis. When is it possible to play the move Queen to A4, and when it's actually not good to play the move Queen to A4? In my opinion, this rushed move immediately, Queen to A4, is not good for White. From this point on, Black has a comfortable game, if you know what you're doing, of course. So that's why you have to be really active here. Notice always when your opponent is getting the queen into the game very early, that the queen could be an object of our attack. So that's why we have to know how to attack the queen after move Queen to A4. Of course, the next move is pretty much forced. We have to play Knight to C6 because we're covering ourselves from the check, and also we're protecting the bishop on the bishop on B4. Now what White could do is of course Bishop to C4, but this is not good because we could have here a move Knight to E4. And in the continuation of the video, I'm going to show you how Magnus Carlsen plays the game with this very aggressive method with the move Queen to A4 in a good way. So that's why we'll analyze also a little bit here the Vienna Variation from White's perspective, because in that game you really witness an immortal attack by the world champion Magnus Carlsen against Jan Krzysztof Duda. So as I said, this Queen to A4 has to be really worked out, I think, because it's a very popular method by White. Here it's not working, this move Queen to A4, because Knight to E4 happens. Maybe White could escape from from this attack by Carlsen. Knight to C3, B takes C3, Bishop to C3, and now you see D4 is weak, Rook is hanging. So many tactical possibilities here for Black. So if White continues the game in this way with the move Bishop to G5, then don't worry, because it seems in the beginning of this line that White is very active. We have a pin here, we have I don't know, a pin here. The knights are controlling the center of the board. These are two mobile pawns, so maybe something could be broken here in the center. The position could get open. Maybe Rook to D1 could happen. So many of us, I think, would already start to sweat, would already not feel comfortable in this position. But notice, as I said, that when your opponent is playing an early queen move, and it works also for some other openings, that the queen could be actually an object of the attack. So that's why we can solve all of the problems. This move Rook to D1, this pin idea, and also this pin by the queen against the knight by one simple move. It's of course the move Bishop to D7, and now we're threatening Knight to D4. This is now really beautiful discovered attack. For instance, if White plays now the move E5, which could be a very aggressive method to continue here with this very annoying pin, then we have to play knight to d4. If queen takes b4 happens, then we have the royal fork, knight to c2. You see the queen is hanging here, and it's simply game over. So that's why white in this particular scenario would be forced to play the move queen to d1. But now we have sort of a tempo that we get knight to f3. White has to react again. White doesn't have time to take here the knight on f6. We have queen to f3, and now with bishop to c6 we create a new counterattack. Now the queen has several choices. The queen could retreat to g3 or e3. Wherever the queen retreats, we can have time to escape from this attack, because we can also play now knight to e4. The knight cannot take, of course, because of the pin by the bishop. Now, of course, white could take, but also you can take out this one, h takes g3, rook takes d8, and this is a completely winning endgame here now for black. Black is here 7 pawns on the board. Okay, we don't count this pawn because probably white will take, so it will be an endgame where black is now 4 plus 3, 7 pawns against white 6 pawns. Black still has the bishop pair on the board, has also the opportunity to secure the king by castling, can also create some attacks on the d file. So this is completely winning. So in this after move queen to f3 and bishop to c6, what white could do is maybe here queen to h3, but again, don't worry, you have this stunner, queen to d5, and now it's not possible anymore to take. E takes f6 is not working because the bishop is also hanging. Okay, maybe white could go into this line, but still we can take, and still we have our pressure around the square c3. I think now queenside castling is a realistic opportunity, and it's also creating further pressure against c3. We can then maybe double up rooks again on the d file, so it's again, I think, a pleasant game. What white could do instead of queen takes f3 is also g takes f3 to take with the pawn, but it's not the problem. Still we can kick away the bishop, although here the tension we have now in the continuation, maybe something like bishop to h4 could happen, but now with g5, okay, white could take, but we can also take out this one. The pawn on f6 is hanging still. Queenside castling is working. Then afterwards, maybe then c6, b5, maybe to support our pawn is also a good choice here. So as I said, from this point on, I think black has a decent game and black doesn't have worries. So that's why it's very important to play this move bishop to d7, because the main tactical goal is this discovered attack knight takes d4 followed with knight to c2. Now white needs to retreat, queen to c2. What's going on now on the board? The queen is protecting also the e4 pawn, and white is staying also with this very annoying pin. Now we have to know again what we're doing. We have to play h6. If white wants to take now, of course, then we continue the game with the beautiful bishop pair. We have still our activity on around the square c3. Queenside castling is again an opportunity. We can also play e5 then afterwards to break the center. For instance, something like here bishop to c4, e5 is working. If, for instance, something like d5, knight takes, knight to d4, you see this is also very dangerous. Again, a beautiful continuation here for black. So after move h6, actually black can could be maybe further challenged with the move bishop to h4, but again this is not working because now we have to proceed with g5. After bishop to g3, we can also play g4, and the problem always about these two knights is they're protecting this 2 pawns in the center, but they're getting more and more attacked. After something like knight to d2, notice that we can also take out finally this pawn on d4, and again it's completely winning here for black. So here after move h6, white needs to play the move bishop to d2, and now comes a move that I think you have to know from this point on, and it's aggressive method, but it's a must move here for black. It's the move b5, and it seems like a strange idea to sacrifice your pawn like this on b5, but actually from this point on, black has really beautiful game. For instance, if white takes now the pawn on b5, then we can simply take bishop takes d2. Now the queen or the knight can take. If the queen takes, of course, notice that the pawn on e4 is hanging. So that's why white needs to take out with the knight. If white takes out with the king, that is not good because of this idea. Maybe rook to b8 attacking the knight. Maybe there are some tactics around the square b2. Of course, you don't want to play with your king like this, then you cannot secure the king by castling anymore. So that's why white simply needs to take out with the knight. So here we can play an a6, knight to a3, and now we simply take out again a new centralized pawns. Always there is a possibility to take out something in the center. Okay, or maybe black could also get challenged with this move queen to c4, but now with bishop to b5, black can also solve all of the positional problems, maybe something like knight to b5, a takes b5, queen to c5. Now we simplify the position with trading off queens, queen to d6, maybe b takes c takes d6, and now decentralized causes many tactical problems. Knight to c2 is now an opportunity. The rook is already aiming here on the eighth file. We can play even, I think, something like king to e7. I think it's not even necessary to castle anymore. King to e7, maybe something like rook to c8, and here black is really perfect setup. We can even support our knight with the move e5, cementing it further. Also some ideas maybe then afterwards, knight to d7, knight to c5 are working, rerouting the knight, finding new squares for the piece. So as I said, in my opinion, this move b5, you have to really know. What white could do is, of course, is to play bishop to e2, but now we fixed everything with the move a6, and this is now our cornerstone position. Here the evaluation is already much better for black, and this is sort of a position that you have to know, I think, if you want to play the sharp line. So as I said, in my opinion, let's go back to the critical moment of this opening. Queen to a4 here is simply too rushed, if you know, of course, what you're doing. Then we play knight to c6, as we said, bishop to d7, queen to c2, h6, bishop to d2 retreats, and now b5, must know move. That's the only move that brings here an advantage for black. Every other move is simply too passive. So this is a line that you have to know by heart. So let's see now the move queen to a4, when the queen to a4 move is actually a good idea. And why is it a good idea? Because black played the several mistakes, and that's something that bothered me many times when I tried to play the Vienna Variation myself, and I faced this particular line. We can again face these ideas. We have the 3 knights variation. Again, we play the Vienna Variation move d takes c4, and now after move e4, we play the common move bishop to b4. Now white plays the normal bishop to c4. In our previous 2 videos, we have analyzed these lines after move bishop to c4, and my recommendation was still to play knight to e4. Again, queen to a4 here in this particular move order would be too rushed. Again, we would reach a similar position. Knight to c6 covers everything. If white castles, now knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop to c3 is perfectly fine. But now after move here knight to e4, if white castles, my recommendation is, as we analyzed before, is to play knight takes c3, and that was, as I said, the line that we have covered so far, and it's a must know line. After move knight to c3, b takes c3, bishop to c3 is now a mistake. This lines we have covered also, so you don't take this other pawn, just retreat to e7. So this is a must move, and this, from this point on, in my opinion, black has a good game. But what you could do maybe after castling is to retreat now with the knight on f6, and in my opinion this is not good anymore, because now the queen to a4 move is perfectly fine. Now you have to play knight to c6. You see white continues the pressure with the move bishop to g5. Here you have to retreat to e7, because there are always some ideas of knight to e5. Here after bishop to f6, the problem is now always this move d5. So you would lose, I think, too many tempi just to secure the king, and now with the move d5 the position will explode in the center of the board. So from this point on, as I said, white could have a really comfortable game. So let's go back. After a move here kingside castling, you have to play knight to c3. After b takes c3, we're trading simply to e7, and we have covered these lines in the beautiful gameplay by Vladimir Kramnik against Magnus Carlsen, in which Vladimir destroyed here Magnus Carlsen in this particular position. So as I said, don't retreat again to f6. Just take out the knight, because you will face this idea queen to a4, then you have to cover bishop to g5. You see d5 opens the position too much, and black is already serious tactical problem. So as I said, let's see now a beautiful game when Magnus Carlsen played here in this line, when Jan Krzysztof Duda retreated to f6 again, when he played the line that I'm not suggesting you to play. You see now here really mortal and brutal attack played by the world champion. If you put the PGN of this game into Stockfish engine at home, it will show you that Magnus played here without inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders. It was the brutal attack by the world champion, where he pulled off a forced 10-move tactical sequence. In my opinion, it was really one of the best games played by the world champion Magnus Carlsen in this what is in my opinion really a bad line here for black. So here let's check out now again the Vienna variation, but now from white's perspective. As I said, we have covered the lines that you should play. Now let's see what happens if you don't play the game like this, because you could get smashed like this. So here knight to c3, again we have the d takes c4 move, the Vienna variation move. So we have now e4, bishop to b4, here Magnus took, bishop to c4, knight to e4, and now after kingside castling, my recommendation here, as I said, is to play knight takes c3, b takes c3, and followed with bishop to e7. This is a good way here. But here, Jan Krzysztof Duda played the move knight to f6. Still, you see many times these lines, and they are good in some occasions. Maybe you can also see some games where black is winning the game in this particular line. But I think this line, these different lines are much easier to play that I've explained to you, because you don't have to study so much theory here. And after move knight to f6, of course the realistic possibility is this move, queen to a4. You have to now play the move knight to c6, and now from this point on you see white is already a dynamic game with the move knight to e5. Bishop to d7 is not working here to cover yourself, because we get simply knight to c6. You can play maybe bishop to c3, because if you take of course bishop takes c6, then the bishop is hanging here on b4, so white is continuing the game with an extra piece. So that's why you have to play bishop takes c3. But now knight takes d8. Also black could take here the bishop on a4, but now with knight to e6, you see if f takes e6 happens, then b takes c3, and we have now weakness on e6. White is continuing the game with the bishop pair, so this is again not a good position here for black. So that's why here after move knight to e5, Jan Krzysztof Duda plays now the best line. He plays simply rook to b8. Of course, if knight to c6 happens, b takes c6, and you see the rook is protecting the bishop. So it's a beautiful way here to stay active into the game. So here the continuation, Magnus simply plays rook to d1. He has to protect now his weak pawn on d4. We have kingside castling, knight to c6, Duda played here b takes c6, and we have here after move queen to a7, Magnus got his pawn back, but we have to see also here some possibilities with move c5, so the position in the center could be broken, and suddenly Magnus Carlsen is also left with an isolated pawn. So strategically this could be a disadvantage here for white. So in the continuation we have now bishop to d7. Here Duda connects the rook to the defense of the queen. We have now queen to a4, and now c5. That's the move, as we said, that black wanted to play, simply an attack against an isolated pawn. We have now queen to c2, we have c takes d4, and now a rook to d4 here by Magnus Carlsen. So here we have bishop to c5, and now Magnus played a beautiful move, rook to h4. And look at this setup. Although the material is equal, still we have 5 pawns against 5 pawns. White is here beautiful bishop activity. Black is also the bishop pair on the board. But I really like now white's position, although the engine gives here equal chances for both sides. But look at this attacking formation. I think we can agree that something is going on around the square h7. Bishop to d3 could be an opportunity, even some bishop to g5 idea, spinning the knight, then followed with rook to d1 also is a good choice here. So the attacking formation that you get out of this, and you reach many times I think this position if your opponent from black perspective plays the game like this. But now after rook to h4, here Jan Krzysztof Duda pulled off a move that could maybe solve the position around the square h7, but now Magnus played an immortal forced 10 moves tactical sequence. He played simply bishop to h6. We have g takes h6, and now queen to d2. You have to now cover yourself like this. You have to play knight to h7, because if you try maybe to create some breathing spaces for the king, then of course queen to h6, and there's not a good way anymore to protect the h8. It's game over. So that's why here Duda had to play knight to h7. Magnus took, and now after move bishop to f2, you see the king got decoyed here towards the square f2, where of course Jan Krzysztof Duda tried to simplify the game by trading off the queens. Here Magnus simply took, knight to f6. Everything is forced here, so there are now not better moves here for white and for black. We have rook to b2, really beautiful move here by Duda. He created this intermediate check. We have king to g1, knight to f6, and now after move rook to f1, you see the knight is a little bit in danger, because if you try now here something like knight to h7 to get the knight into the game, then you get rook to f3, and suddenly you see after f5 you can play rook to g3. Now you see you have to step back from the defense of the g file, well. Now here in the continuation you can try a4. So it's, I think, a pleasant game now for white. Even if you try something like f4 to attack the rook, then you get simply this one, and you cannot protect yourself because bishop to d3 is happening and the game is over. So that's why, as I said, after move rook to f1, here king to g7 had to be played, but now still rook to f3 by Magnus. He's trying now to play rook to g3, delivering a checkmate. Here rook to g8, we have rook to f4. Now you see there is a beautiful tension on the f-file. Here bishop to c6 was played by young Krzysztof Duda, and Magnus simply takes, rook takes f6, we have bishop to f3, and after rook to f3 everything was pretty much forced. So this was almost like the best stockfish continuation here by both sides. After move rook to f3, here from this point on Magnus had two minor pieces against the rook endgame, where he has also here the pass pawn on the a file. He has also a pass pawn on the h file, and Magnus Carlsen won the game. Here we're now in move 27, so the game was prolonged till move 70. I will show you in the description below the whole PGN. You can then afterwards analyze the game, but from this point on Magnus had really a dominant game, and I really loved his approach. As I said, let's go back. After move d takes c4, Magnus took, here bishop to c4, knight to e4, king sack castle. In my opinion, don't retreat to f6, just take out the knight on c3, b takes c3, then retreat with the bishop, because the queen to a4 doesn't make sense anymore. But in this scenario, if you retreat to f6, then you will face probably this move, queen to a4, knight to c6, and you see now with the move knight to e5, I think white has really a good position here, because white is playing actually the forcing move. Black has to defend here, so it's a one-way ticket in my opinion from this position. So okay, I hope that you realize this queen to a4 ideas. We have seen also in this example, let's go back, that this queen to a4, for instance, in this position is not working. The queen got too early into the game. Bishop to d7, now h6, b5 as a must know move. Knight to b5 is not working. So study please this opening lines, because I think you faced them many times in your own games, especially from Black's perspective. You could get smashed with this move queen to a4. You saw also young Krzysztof Duda didn't have counterplays against Magnus Carlsen, so it's something really worth the study. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed our analysis of the Vienna variation. If you want to know more about this opening, please check out our whole series from the beginning, part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on. Here's the link to the playlist. And if you want to see our whole studies of the Queen's Gambit Declined, in which we have explained so far some other ideas like the Harvard's attack, Qigong in defense, and many other possibilities, here's also the link of our playlist. And if you like the content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.